Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 9 a.m. keynote session. My name is Nick. If you are just waking up and joining us, we have been live all night long. Want to make sure you can see us and hear us okay. Give us a thumbs up in the chat. And I would love to know, to get some practice with using the chat, what you plan to do this weekend in emoji form. So if you can go ahead and type that into the chat, that would be awesome. Hello. And as we're doing that, really excited to have you all join us. We have 3,800 people joining us live for this conference and over 200 sessions. So some of you have already been active in them. Some of you are just waking up and going to join them. We are truly thrilled to be able to welcome you today. So Wayne, do you want to say hi to the folks who are watching as well?
Hey everybody, I'm Wayne Voda, Director of Digital Health at IntraHealth International and part of the crew here with Nick and others who have put this together. So thanks to everybody who has helped make this happen. This has been a truly global event. If you look at the participants tab on the website, you'll see that people are engaging with us from every habitable continent on Earth. It's really amazing. It's very global. Some of us started out in the morning time in South Asia to East Africa, to West Africa, and now we're in the Eastern Americas. It's definitely an amazing event. And I'd just like to take a moment to thank all of the sponsors who made this happen: USAID, Digital Impact Alliance, Chemonics, Save the Children, IntraHealth, Catholic Relief Services, and of course, Tech Change and all the amazing volunteers that have really put this together. So today, we really want to start now with our Eastern America's keynote. We're going to start with a greeting from USAID Deputy Administrator Bonnie Glick. Then we're going to move to a keynote with Christopher Burns and Michelle Parker from the Center for Digital Development. For those of you joining us right now, please be asking your questions or giving your thoughts and comments into the chat. I will be using those comments and suggestions and thoughts in giving questions and commentary with Chris and Michelle once their keynote ends. So we have a 10-minute Q&A. Love for you to be giving us ideas so that we can make sure that it's a lively Q&A that responds to your questions and your thoughts. And then after that Q&A, we're moving on to lightning talks. And those are 5-minute fast ideas for you to gather and understand. And so this is really exciting for us. It's amazing how many people have come together for this. So congrats to Nick and the team. And thank you, our participants, for really making this exciting and engaging. Love the commentary and feedback in the breakouts and the engagement we see in the discussion forums and with the technology demos. Really amazing to see this all. All right, so enough of me talking. I'd actually love to turn it over now, and let's hear the opening remarks from Deputy Administrator Bonnie Glick on the role of digital development and the role of the new digital strategy from USAID. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the first ever virtual Global Digital Development Forum. It's terrific to see so many of our peers from across the world getting together to discuss the most pressing digital development issues. While most of us are fortunate enough to participate online in this remarkable event, many around the world don't have that same ability. It's more important than ever for USAID and our partners to help communities be resilient in the face of threats like COVID-19 by ensuring countries have robust digital ecosystems that are open, inclusive, secure, and of benefit to everyone. That's why USAID recently launched its first ever digital strategy, which charts an agency-wide vision for the responsible use of digital technology in development and humanitarian assistance in the world's rapidly evolving digital landscape. The implementation of this strategy will span 5 years, and it'll aim to broaden global internet access, close the digital gender gap, and improve the ability of civil society and governments to engage with the technologies of the future. But we cannot do this alone. Given the incredible pace of technological change, none of us will hold a monopoly on expertise, and no single stakeholder will have all the answers. We all must be committed and open to learning and doing together. While digital technology has many benefits, it also carries real risks. We have to remain vigilant in the face of digital tools for government surveillance of citizens masquerading as things like social credit systems or safe cities. And we look forward to working with partners like you to do just that. Now, more than ever, as the global development community works to deliver life-saving assistance and relay crucial information in the face of COVID-19, the role of digital technology is undeniable. USAID is committed to ensuring that the countries where we work are set on a path toward a digital future that empowers everyone. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Chris and Michelle, please start.
Great, thanks, Wayne. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the first ever Global Digital Development Forum. I applaud all of the organizers for bringing together all of us under such short order. My name's Chris.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
And together we're going to share with you some highlights of USAID's digital strategy. Looking over the full agenda for this forum, I'm amazed by the breadth of topics and the depth of expertise that's being showcased today. I'm truly honored to be a part of it. I'm also looking forward to learning from my peers throughout the forum. As we, the global development community, work to deliver life-saving assistance and relay crucial information in the face of the pandemic of COVID-19, the role of digital technology is both timely and undeniable, as you just heard from USAID Deputy Administrator Bonnie Glick. We know that teachers are delivering lessons remotely to homebound classes, something I'm experiencing firsthand here in my household. We know healthcare workers are diagnosing patients via telemedicine to minimize their risk of exposure. And we know people worldwide are seeking out online information about the pandemic's impact on their lives and their livelihoods. Across all these activities, digital technology is what allows us to remain connected even while physical distancing requires us to be apart. It is more important now than ever before for our organizations to help communities be more resilient in the face of threats like this global pandemic by ensuring all countries have strong digital ecosystems that are open, secure, inclusive, and of benefit to all. In light of this, we're thrilled to have launched USAID's first ever digital strategy on April 15th. Building on decades of leadership in digital development, the digital strategy outlines USAID's deliberate and holistic commitment to move our development and humanitarian assistance into the digital age. In doing so, the strategy charts how USAID will change the way it does business, and by extension, that of our partners, in a manner that reflects best practice and that is evidence-based. The goals laid out in this digital strategy are simple. They center around two core mutually reinforcing objectives. One, to improve measurable development and humanitarian assistance outcomes through the responsible use of digital technology in USAID's programming. And two, to strengthen the openness, inclusiveness, and security of country-level digital ecosystems. They're mutually reinforcing because we can't do one without the other if we're going to be successful. We can't effectively and responsibly use digital tech development outcomes in a country without strong digital foundations in place. At the same time, how we use digital technology in our development programs can either further support the ecosystem or it can actually weaken it. For example, if we don't take into consideration privacy or cybersecurity when rolling out a digital health information system, we can actually put patients at further risk. This digital strategy was 18 months in the making, and much of that time was spent talking with USAID staff, to our partners, our fellow donors, host governments, and the private sector, many of whom are part of this forum today. So it was truly a consultative process. And over the course of these conversations, it became clear that there were 4 critical areas where we as a community needed to coalesce. For those of you inclined to read the entire strategy, all 60 pages of it, you'll find these in Annex 2. And this is the section on which we're going to concentrate this morning. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to walk us through the first area. Michelle?
Thanks so much, Chris. Yeah, so the first critical area we focus on in the strategy is this concept of navigating opportunities and risks in a digital ecosystem. Now, we know digital tools can save lives. It can lift people out of poverty. It can connect democratic governments with their citizens in profound ways and open up markets and capital to people who would have never had opportunities even a few years ago. However, with those opportunities, there are also a lot of risks. We know, as Deputy Administrator Glick mentioned, that authoritarian regimes are using surveillance technology to quash dissent and limit personal freedoms in countries. We know that there is a movement towards limiting open markets. And we know that for those who are not digitally literate, they are at extreme risk of data privacy violations, cyber harm online, bullying, etc. Therefore, it is important as development practitioners that we learn how to navigate these 2 different sides of the development ecosystem, that we can mitigate harms while taking opportunities and embracing those. Therefore, let me give you an example of what we're talking about. For USAID, we are very keen to use emerging technologies in our programming. AI and machine learning, for example, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, for example, are really critical tools that we think will be game changers in a lot of the areas of development in which we're working. However, if the models that we're using for this technology are not inclusive and fair, we could actually be exacerbating local tensions or locking in existing prejudices, literally through coding them into the process. Therefore, about 2 or 3 months ago, we started working with MIT to develop guidance around how to use artificial intelligence and machine learning in a development context to ensure that those models are fair and inclusive. And this is the kind of work we want to continue to do with our academic colleagues, with the private sector, to really make sure that as we're using technology, we're doing it in a way, again, that's mitigating harms and seizing opportunities. For our strategy specifically, we've identified 5 areas that we really want to grow out our expertise in, and you'll be hearing a lot more about these in the coming months and years. The first is closing the digital gender divide. We're also looking at mitigating cyber harms, really focusing on the role of data privacy. Digital literacy, as I mentioned, is critical to everything that we're doing. And finally, we wanted to really focus on protecting children from digital harm as the next generation comes online. And to do all of this, we really need to take an ecosystem approach. So with that, I'll turn it back to Chris to talk about the next critical area.
Great. Yes, it's become clear to us over the years that when rolling out responsible digital technologies in our development programs, it's necessary to take a foundational ecosystem approach to development in a digital age. It's not enough just to focus on the applications and the consumer-facing products. Digital ecosystems, the stakeholders, the systems, the enabling environments that together empower people and communities to use digital technology to gain access to services, engage with each other, or pursue economic opportunities holds immense potential to help people live freer, healthier, and more prosperous lives. These ecosystems can help drive economic empowerment, financial inclusion, can advance national security, support accountability and transparency in governance, introduce new and innovative solutions across sectors, and make development and humanitarian assistance more efficient and effective. Post-Ebola West Africa serves as an illustrative. These foundations, when built together, open up significant opportunity and enable a country to be more self-reliant. We know that in the face of Ebola in West Africa, healthcare workers had trouble communicating with one another and from gaining access to information from the Ministry of Health. We also know that there were unreliable communication infrastructure in place to allow healthcare workers to speak with one another. So one of the things we did is, working with the government of Liberia, we repurposed existing software and developed mHero, a two-way information sharing platform to communicate with frontline health workers and to convey time-sensitive information. Thanks to mHero's flexible design, the government of Liberia has since used that platform nearly 80 times since the outbreak for disease surveillance, commodity tracking, and for training. Most recently, it's repurposing it to share weekly updates on COVID-19 and support early case detection. But a strong communication system in the absence of reliable connectivity was insufficient. So in post-Ebola outbreak, during recovery, we partnered with Google and its local affiliate, C Squared, to bring high-powered, high-speed metro fiber connectivity to Monrovia and around and out into the other rural areas in Liberia. To date, we've installed nearly 200 kilometers of metro fiber cable around Monrovia, and we've hooked up nearly 40 government ministries. That way, they now have secure and reliable infrastructure with which to share information out into remote areas. But even beyond that, we also knew that across the West African region, West Africa health information teams lacked the technical capacity locally to maintain and adapt their digital health platforms. Technical expertise, when it was available, was usually within the private sector. The public sector had to fly in international experts to take care of these systems. So USAID, and together with the West African Health Organization, developed and launched the West African Health Informatics Team, a team of software engineers and information experts to help build and maintain local technical capacity to sustain these health information systems. Hopefully, some of you tuned into their presentation earlier this morning. Now, ministries of health across West Africa have stronger data management capacity and can improve the use and access of information, even in current contexts such as COVID-19 response. So it's this package of infrastructure, reusable communication and information sharing platforms, and capacity building that has put Liberia and neighboring countries in a better position to respond to future health crises. With these examples in place, I'll turn to what USAID and its digital strategy is going to do to advance an inclusive digital ecosystem. We're going to create tools and resources to enable our staff in country and our partners to better understand the ecosystem, to understand where there are opportunities and where there are risks that need to be addressed. Two ways we're going to do that is, one, through the development of digital ecosystem country assessments. These are going to be tools that will identify what's possible, where the opportunities are, what needs to be mitigated and addressed with respect to risks, so that our colleagues on the ground can be proactive in mitigating them. We've already rolled out a pilot of these digital ecosystem country assessments in Kenya and in Colombia earlier this year. We're going to be doing a few more pilots this summer, and we hope to be able to scale out them later in the year. We also just stood up an internal digital ecosystem fund. This is a way for our USAID missions in country to take those learnings from those assessments and actively mitigate and address the risks that exist in those countries. We anticipate that through the Digital Ecosystem Fund, our missions are going to be partnering with a number of you and a number of organizations in rolling out these efforts. That's a bit of a flavor of what we're looking at in this area. I'll turn it back over to Michelle now to talk through how we plan to invest in our staff to manage these ambitious goals.
Thanks, Chris. Absolutely. We cannot accomplish this if we do not have significant human capital investment. So one of the things that we're asking all of you to do is really think about and talk to your organizations about ensuring your staff have been upskilled in the use of digital technology and understanding the opportunities and risks and which tools are best suited for which kind of challenges. So I'm not going to focus too much on the external today. I do want to talk about what USAID is doing, but I want to just emphasize again that we need to invest in human capital, not only in our own organizations, but also within our partner countries, in host nation governments, with media, civil society, and private sector. And again, this is the theme on digital literacy that I mentioned earlier on the risks and opportunities section. As for USAID, we are committed to upskilling our staff. We're building new resources and training tools to make sure that all of our staff are able to have a basic understanding of digital technology, how it's used, and how it could be used for development solutions. We're also going to be creating professional development opportunities for our staff to work with private sector organizations, tech firms, cybersecurity firms, think tanks, and academia, so that they can dive deep on a specific issue facing either a sector or a region, and then bring that information back to the agency and feed it into our training system so that everyone can benefit from those experiences. Another thing that we're doing is acknowledging we may not have all the skills at present that we need to work in this digital revolution. Therefore, we're really looking at hiring data scientists, cybersecurity experts, experts in emerging technologies, so that as the digital landscape changes, we're going to stay right there and be able to take advantage of those opportunities and mitigate those risks. Another thing that we're going to be doing is investing in our missions. We know that having someone in the country where we are doing our programming is critical to being able to affect change in a digital ecosystem. Therefore, building on a pilot that we started a few years ago in the U.S. Global Development Lab at USAID, we are going to ambitiously try to place digital development advisors in every one of our missions across the world. And the idea is that this person would have a mandate to do all of the coordination around digital programming, to work with the telecom ministry and the ministries of ICT in the countries, to understand what's happening and inform our missions programming to maximize those opportunities we've been discussing today. So those are just a few of the measures we are taking internally and our commitment to invest in human capital. I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to talk about some of the operational changes that we've called for in the strategy. Chris?
Great. I'm definitely excited about that section on upskilling our own staff and the staff of our partners around the world to build that capacity. The last theme to emerge from our extensive consultations was the need to shift how USAID responds to development challenges in the face of a dynamic and rapidly changing digital era. We know that digital technology is constantly evolving. We're continually having to keep our eyes on the past, on the present, and what's to come. Yet we also know that institutional structures and processes of both governments and development organizations have been slow to adapt and often struggle to keep up. As a result, institutions often lack the capacity to design, implement, and monitor programs and activities effectively that engage with or use digital tools and technologies. We know that the continued proliferation and adoption of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence are only going to amplify these challenges and perhaps outpace our ability to explore appropriate safeguards or enact the right-sized policies that promote healthy innovation while protecting against misuse or harm. Even if the staff and personnel of our international partners have the skills and capacity to use technology and data to redesign development programs and activities, the norms and the incentives that shape their decisions and actions often make it difficult to do so. For example, because development and humanitarian assistance projects and activities traditionally depend on funding tied to a particular sector, they often invest only in a sliver of what is needed of the digital infrastructure, if at all. This is an area where we have an outsized role to play. We must continue to strive towards a value-driven, principled approach to digital development that encourages the responsible, equitable, and sustainable use of digital technology in all of our programming, regardless of sector, geography, or demographic. I again turn to post-Ebola West Africa to look at the role of digital payments and how they helped frontline health workers. The Better Than Cash Alliance, that was co-founded by USAID, supported the digitization of hazard payments to response workers in Sierra Leone. This strengthened the country's capacity to contain the outbreak, to treat those infected, and ultimately saved lives. Digitizing payments also delivered cost savings by eliminating double payment, reducing fraud, removing the cost of physical cash transportation and security, and cutting travel costs for response workers. We know digital payments work, and there is enough solid evidence to back this up. Luckily, we're taking those learnings and those experiences, and now informing and building upon them to inform how we combat COVID-19 with respect to digital payments and financial inclusions. Another example, of course, is the principles for digital development. These are widely discussed throughout this forum. USAID was a co-drafter of the principles and an original endorser. We know that these 9 areas of best practice in the application of digital technologies in global development are going to spearhead how we do development work more effectively in a digital age. Now that over 200 organizations have endorsed these principles, we want to make sure that we as a donor build them into everything we're doing. And so how is the digital strategy going to advance this area? It's going to break barriers, and we're excited to see what's about to happen, particularly within a section called Digital by Default. What we're looking for here is a culture shift, both within USAID and across our implementing development partners, where digital technology is where we start from, not something we add on to as an afterthought. As such, digital payments will be the default method of payment for all of our awards. Also, we're going to integrate the principles for digital development into the design, procurement, and implementation of all of our awards as appropriate. And finally, in lieu of paper-based data collection methods, USAID will require that our staff and partners collect all programmatic data digitally to the greatest extent possible. In this manner, we will be able to enhance collection, analysis, and dissemination of data for better decision-making, strategic planning, and adaptive programming. But Michelle, what does all of this mean on the grand scheme of things?
Well, Chris, it means that we have a bold vision for development in a digital age, and we cannot do this alone. Therefore, we're using this platform to have a call to action for all of you to join us on this journey as we shift to digital in this moment of digital revolution. As Chris mentioned, we have an ecosystem level approach, not only for our programming, but in everything that we do. Therefore, we need to work with the private sector. We need to work with academia. We need to work with other donors, our partner community, to really make sure that we're executing this at the highest levels possible. And the first step towards that journey of working with each one of you in the digital strategies implementation is to hear what you all are doing. It is my great privilege and pleasure to announce that USAID's Digital Development Awards are open for application today. As you can see at the bottom of this slide, there's the website. This is what we affectionately refer to as our Digi Awards. They were established in 2017 by the US Global Development Lab specifically to highlight the excellent work using digital technology to solve development challenges. We would encourage every one of you to apply and send in examples of your good work so that it can not only be honored, but that it can inform us of what's happening so that we can create a feedback loop to understand what's happening in the field, design trainings and guidance around it, and then push it back out to the field and back and forth. We really want this to be a constantly iterative process because technology changes so fast. As Chris mentioned, we're trying to keep up with it, and we're really going to need to work as a group to do that. Some of the previous winners have upskilled folks in the Amazon on digital literacy. They've used remote censoring to help the Moldovan wine industry, and I don't know how I wasn't involved with that, but I think I might want to in the future. And then also landowners in Tanzania. So it's a broad opportunity in every single sector and every type of work, and we, again, really encourage you to apply. I also want to have a specific call to action for our private sector colleagues. If you saw the launch of our digital strategy, our deputy administrator highlighted the importance of working with the private sector. We cannot do this alone. And we have some specific areas we'd like to explore on closing the gender divide, educating and working with our private sector colleagues to explain the importance of cybersecurity and data privacy in the countries in which we work. I mentioned digital literacy, and also Chris highlighted the work we did in partnership with Google laying infrastructure in countries. We would like to continue exploring that, especially focusing on open, secure, and inclusive infrastructure. And with that, Chris, I leave it to you to wrap up.
Sure, I'd be glad to wrap it up, Michelle. Thanks. So we've presented you with what we are going to be responsible for and what we hope by extension many of our partners will embrace. Together, we are going to continue to ensure that technology and digital ecosystems enable women and men to live freer, healthier, more prosperous lives. We envision a world that overcomes the chasm between the digitally enriched and an unemployable underclass, in which there is a global convergence toward democratic governance and higher living standards, and in which the governments of self-reliant countries guarantee democracy, security, dignity, human rights, and justice for its citizens. Thank you. Wayne, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Chris and Michelle. That was amazing. And I'm very excited also that you've announced the Digis. So I put a link in the chat for people to review those and hopefully apply. And then, though I do have some questions that have been coming in the chat for the both of you, they've been really good. I'd like to start off, Chris, with a question for you. And there's been much interest in the concept of digital ecosystem assessments. Several people were asking questions around that, and I'm going to try to combine them all into one for you. The first one is, what are these digital ecosystem assessments? What do they look like? For example, what are the indicators that might be there? And how are you thinking of support for countries to improve what those indicators might be? And then the other aspect of that is, are these assessments going to be public in some way where implementing partners can help support governments and USAID to achieve greater indicator achievement?
Yeah, that's such an awesome set of questions. We're really excited by the digital ecosystem country assessments and the role that they're going to play. I get to turn this over to Michelle to answer, since she is actually leading the charge on this front, as well as leading our overall implementation of the digital strategy.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, thank you all so much for asking about our digital ecosystem country assessments. And full transparency, we are creating the tool this year. So we are going through some iterations, and I don't want to say 100% that it's final, but the idea behind this is really looking at three aspects of a digital ecosystem. We're looking at access and use, which includes connectivity, how much internet costs, where is the coverage, things like that. The second area is really about digital governance, the rules, the policies, the regulations that exist in a country, digital rights. Are there civil society organizations that serve watchdog functions? That whole dynamic. And then the third area that we're really looking at is the digital economy, which includes everything from digital financial services to e-trade and commerce. So those are the way we've framed the three pillars of the ecosystem. I want to be very clear in saying that this is meant to be a tool essentially to help inform USAID missions in our programming. So we tailor each ecosystem assessment to the specific country development strategies that our missions are focused on. So there might be some areas that we don't touch because we just don't have funding in that area. But the idea is that we have a three-part section. We do a desk review based on available information that we can access virtually, which is quite handy these days. We go into country and do a series of interviews, and then we also have polling so that we can pull in lots of different sources to really build out that picture. So that's essentially the way the tool is being constructed right now. And to answer the other question, yes, we intend for these to be public facing. And in fact, for the one in Colombia, we're translating it into Spanish because the Colombian government was able to make some comments and they were very keen to have it to share within their community as well. So we are very excited about working with all of you in this. And I think that about summarizes the answer. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe this this question maybe is for Chris, actually. So the digital strategy is amazing. It really feels like it's pushing the agency forward. And of course, COVID is making everything happen faster, more digital, more faster. I like there's a quote somewhere along the concept that there can be decades when nothing happens and days where decades happen. And it feels like the last few days, decades are happening of change. How are you adapting the digital strategy to make sure that it's surviving and becoming very impactful in this time where we're all going online?
Sure. Well, I think that's a perfect quote that you've picked up on, and I'd say we're adapting it in near real time. As we noted, working on this global forum with all of our colleagues at the same time as implementing the digital strategy really is a convergence that is incredibly timely. And we know that across our 17 or 18 different initiatives that we lay out in Annex 2 of the strategy, that we can't jump into every one of them at the same time, although we have a lot of planning in place for most of them. What we're trying to do is be more adaptive in recognizing where countries where we have programs are really being affected by COVID-19 and taking the existing initiatives across the digital strategy and emphasizing working in those countries. We obviously can't be in 80 plus countries at the same time, but we want to make sure that we are very proactive in responding to partners' needs on the ground. So we're doing that at an agency level. We are hearing from our implementing partners. We do a lot with the Digital Impact Alliance, for example, and we know that they are hearing from partners in country on how to reassess and shift a little bit in response to those needs. We hear that from partners like the Better Than Cash Alliance and others. So we're really trying to understand the moment and collect the best practices and lessons learned and see how they are applied to this day and age. Again, Michelle has been leading the charge and making sure that we're pulling together a number of thought pieces and two-pagers that really bring to life the tools that we should be embracing in this day and age, and then making sure that our colleagues across the world have access to those resources as they try to figure out how we all respond to such a dynamic and fluid situation. And so I think the way the strategy was designed is, even though it's a 5-year strategy, we know that it's not going to be static. We know that it's going to be in a continued state of evolution. And I guess we're just experiencing that from day one to make sure that we're successful in it.
Well, I've got a last comment. Maybe I can squeeze in a question for you all, but I'm really happy and very excited that you all are hiring digital experts at the mission level. And those digital experts are able to really help missions understand and mission staff understand the power of technology. I think that's part of your upskilling concept. And at the same time, I'm actually excited that coming up at 10 a.m. Eastern time, or directly after this session, is actually, directly after this, the Lightning Talk's coming up next, is a breakout session on digital development advisors. So we'll hear directly from those advisors in their respective countries. So I'm really excited for that session. And I guess I'd love to end with how you all see those advisors as instruments of this digital strategy in the different missions. And I guess that would probably be for Michelle.
Yeah, so they are the linchpin, if I can use that term, everyone understands it, for the strategy. They will be coordinating the digital ecosystem country assessments. They will be helping the mission apply to the Digital Ecosystem Fund. They will be reviewing the applications and the procurement processes to make sure the principles for digital development are incorporated throughout the process. They will be working with our colleagues in the missions to make sure that they have access to the appropriate training that is needed. So everything that we've discussed in each of the critical areas, this person is responsible for overseeing and ensuring each mission has access to and understands every aspect of the digital strategy. So it is a big job, and we are very, very excited to get moving on hiring those folks and bringing them online.
Great. So for those of you watching next, we're going to have lightning talks, and then after lightning talks, we'll have breakout sessions. Be sure to jump into the breakout session you want quickly. I know personally, I'm very excited about the Digital Development Advisors breakout session, but choose the one that calls to you, and make sure you move into that quickly after the end of the lightning talks. And with that, thank you so much, Christopher and Michelle, and over to the lightning talks.
Thanks, Wayne. Have a great day, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining me today to think about promoting data privacy in the time of COVID-19. My name is Rebecca Saxton-Fox. I lead the Development Informatics team at USAID in the Center for Digital Development. I'm passionate about responsible, appropriate use of data and digital technology in development. I've worked on the Ebola response with USAID, and now I lead our work around the responsible use of data. And I'm thinking about it now, especially during this time. Why is it so important to think about data privacy? I'm sure you've all seen the news reports. For example, a man received death threats and personal attacks online and offline after he was identified as a carrier of COVID-19. In another case, a child was beaten to death by a police officer when a mobile phone tracker indicated he had broken quarantine. These are real examples of what has happened in the past few weeks as privacy has been eroded around the world in the name of surveillance. And the future scenarios are looking even more ominous as surveillance systems are set up around the world. But should we be sacrificing privacy? In the face of a global threat, what should we be thinking about? After all, information is crucial to fight the spread of COVID-19. Responders and decision makers need accurate, timely, and reliable data about the disease's spread. Health workers and communities need access to truthful information to protect themselves and their families. So what can you do in the face of thinking through what level of risk you're willing to take on? How should you balance privacy with use? How should you think about whether sharing sensitive information is more important than protecting privacy? From my perspective, the first tenet about thinking about this is that we as development professionals seek to do no harm. And that's something that we at USAID really stand committed to. We're committed to using data responsibly. Our agency and many other organizations have developed comprehensive policies and guidance that adapt to keep pace with changing contexts. And we must follow these policies in every aspect of decision making, even in crisis situations. The approach that we have developed is to using data responsibly is to balance use, privacy and security, and transparency and accountability. This framework recognizes the huge potential that data has while also recognizing that it comes with risks, especially for vulnerable individuals and groups. It's a framework that I'm going to promote throughout this presentation and beyond. There are a myriad of ethical, legal, and policy issues to consider before making decisions or advising on the collection and use of sensitive data like health information or other information like location data, names, addresses, etc. In the world we live in now, mobile phones can track location data, they can mine social media data, and more. And as I said before, if a government identifies citizens who have been confirmed positive or potentially exposed to COVID, they can quickly and easily publish their home addresses or other identifying information for others to see. And there's a risk that the data or mobile device applications could be used for purposes other than what was originally intended, which can have lasting implications on individual privacy, on human rights, and it could cause harm to them or to others. This topic is so large and complex, it can make your head spin. So what can we do? Let's come back to our framework. Let's think about use versus privacy and security versus transparency and accountability, and how we balance them all. So first, how will your data be used? Is the data necessary? Is there evidence that it will improve public health response? Is your data representative? Is mobile phone and internet penetration high enough that the data will provide sufficient information, especially for women or other vulnerable populations? How's your data being protected now and in the future? What are the implications of loss of privacy? What laws are currently in place in the country where you work that are related to data privacy and user rights? And lastly, who will the data be shared with? Are we being transparent about it and accountable? Are we being accountable to the people who we are collecting data from? What was the individual's expectation when their data was collected? Were they asked if their data could be shared outside of its intended use? Was informed consent obtained before collecting personal data? Loss of privacy can hurt individuals. They have a risk of physical harm, restriction of movement, restriction of freedom by the state or other actors. It can hurt organizations. It can have a chilling effect on development programming. Protecting individuals' privacy increases trust in institutions, both public and private. Building trust in systems encourages use, which increases accuracy, validity, and usefulness of data. It helps us, organizations and governments, allocate resources for informed decision-making. It also increases our ability to provide services to the people who we serve. Data privacy is a very important topic. Thanks for listening, and I hope you move forward with some of the recommendations I made today. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the lightning talk on Learning Never Stops, Engineering Learning Technologies to Scale. My name is Jody Liss. I'm a Senior Advisor for Learning at IntraHealth. Full disclosure, the project that I am about to describe here is a project that I worked on when I was at Japago. I worked on the project for 4 years. This presentation is on behalf of the Zambia country office that I had the privilege of working with. Everything that I am about to describe here is because they made it happen. Last year, the permanent secretary at the Ministry of Health announced e-learning courses in HIV, TB, and maternal child health. She requested that health providers as well as students take the courses in order to earn continuous professional development points. This is the learning portal. There's 11 courses on it, and 5,000 users have registered to take the courses. It began with the Ministry of Health e-health strategy. E-learning is a pillar within the e-health strategy. The project had been working with the IT Directorate and continued to work with them throughout all of these e-learning activities. When we talk about technology, we often talk about people, processes, and the technology itself. It takes a village to be able to create e-learning. I will just mention here the core team at the country office that worked on it. There were 6 of them. They were experts in training, in the subject matter, and in technology. They hired a vendor to create all of the e-learning modules. Moodle was chosen as a learning management platform. It's being hosted by a Moodle partner in the UK. It is being managed by the vendor as well to do the administration of the platform. The project procured and disseminated tablets with the content on it. This is an example of a course in HIV. There are 20 different sections to the course, and it would take over 11 hours to take it. So both the development of the courses as well as actually taking the courses is quite intensive. And then these are courses that were also developed. The process that the country office developed in order to implement goes like this. The e-learning is part of a blended learning approach for a mentorship project. The mentors were already visiting health facilities to provide support in clinical areas to health providers. Now they integrated the e-learning as an additional tool to be able to support the learning of these skills. The learners would take the e-learning, and as I said before, they would earn a certificate and be able to get continuous professional development points. To be able to support this project, a WhatsApp group was formed, as well as the district health officials whose expertise was in IT helped us be able to support on the technology side, and there was a frequently asked questions page on the Ministry of Health. The monitoring and evaluation consisted of mentorship, checklists, the e-learning, as well as clinical examinations. This was all to help to improve the performance of the health providers in order to improve service delivery. The project began in 2017 to implement with 1 cohort in 1 district. There has now been 14 cohorts in 5 districts, and there are over 600 health providers that have done the training through the project. These are part of the 5,000 users that I previously mentioned. Additionally, the e-learning has expanded to other partners who are implementing the e-learning as part of their own training. Schools as well have been taking the e-learning and putting it on their own systems for students to take directly on their platforms. The project is the final year and is now transitioning. At the Ministry of Health, the Directorate of Quality Assurance and Quality Improvement will be the directorate to oversee it in conjunction with the IT and the HR Directorate. The donor is willing to continue to support the e-learning due to other limited resources. They will be providing support for a blended learning coordinator as well as a learning management administrator to help with the system. The donor will also be able to support the hosting of the platform until the ministry is ready to take it over. Another aspect that is taking place is to link the Moodle platform with the council's databases so that the certificate for completion will be automatically sent instead of the health providers having to print it out. This is what it takes to scale e-learning. It's a systems thinking approach, bringing in all these different areas to be able to create the best possible learning experiences. As data is more generated through the e-learning, it will be analyzed and used to see what works and what doesn't work and to further improve the learning experiences. And this is what it takes so that learning never stops. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tim Nurse from Making Sense International. Today I'd like to tell you about our pilot of a digital economic identity for refugees and migrant workers, and what we've learned about how digital identities can lead to financial inclusion. Our story begins in West Africa in 2002. There, I led a financial inclusion initiative that created a cross-border credit history for returning refugees. Refugees who paid back their loans in Guinea were entered on a database and received a certificate indicating their credit history. They could use this certificate to gain access to financial services when they returned to Sierra Leone and Liberia. The system helped 4,000 returnees gain access to credit, but it was low tech and inefficient. 15 years later, the Syrian refugee crisis created a similar situation. A large number of displaced people, unable to take advantage of their past, or create a record of their present circumstances that they can use when they return. However, technology has changed, enabling our simple cross-border certificate program to become a more robust and secure digital economic identity. At the request of MFIs in the region, who wanted to serve refugees but didn't have information on them and feared they would default when given the opportunity to return home to Syria, we created Hawiyati. Hawiyati, or My Identity in Arabic, provided refugees with the opportunity to record their credit history, educational background, and employment information in a secure and verified form. With the support of Sanad and FMO, we've been piloting Hawiyati in Jordan and Lebanon over the past year and a half. For testing purposes, we enrolled 2 mobile market segments, 1,000 refugees and 500 Filipino migrant workers who were clients for our microfinance institution partners. For the pilot, we used an off-the-shelf blockchain-based platform created by BankU. We chose a blockchain-based platform because we believe that the decentralized nature of blockchain would increase trust in the data and security of the information. The platform provided users the ability to create a profile, have their ID verified, record their loans, and upload relevant documents to verify and deepen their profile. The pilot provided some significant learning. Perhaps most important, the identity appeared to provide an incentive for repayment among users, as users understood that their repayment would impact their access to credit with other financial institutions in the future. We were also pleased that Filipino migrant workers took to the platform easily. They were digitally savvy, knew that they wanted financial services when they returned home, and thus they were eager to create a mobile credit history. In contrast, Syrian refugee women were coming from a weak financial system and were largely digitally illiterate. The use case was not that important to them, and so even after significant training to become comfortable on the platform, they just didn't engage. To analyze different behaviors among these segments, we found the technology acceptance model to be useful. For refugees, their digital illiteracy reduced trust at the outset. Then the lack of a strong financial system in Syria reduced their perceived usefulness, negatively influencing uptake. For Filipinos, all the conditions to trust the system were in place, leading to rapid uptake. At the institution level, the value of the digital identity really depended on the maturity of the financial institution partner. Our MFI partners had just started their digitization process and were not yet using sophisticated credit scoring mechanisms. So they had difficulty integrating the DID into their operation effectively. And then on the cost side, since engaging refugees required training and the income per loan was relatively small, the business case for refugee DIDs was relatively weak. This contrasted with migrant workers who easily took to the system and borrowed higher amounts. And of interest to the techies among you, we found that the additional immutability and security that blockchain provides wasn't actually necessary for institutions or individuals to trust the data, indicating that this extra feature just may not be worth it. Overall, we found that digital identities for Syrian refugee women was perhaps a bridge too far without significant additional investment. But there does appear to be a viable case for migrant workers. So going forth, what we recommend are that you work with digital lenders, credit bureaus, and sophisticated MFIs that are ready to use identities and the data they provide. Our partners were willing, but they need further investments to fully leverage a digital identity. For mobile populations, they require an adoption ecosystem in 2 markets, where they are and where they're coming from, or going back to. Our refugee clients were living in a mature market, but returning to a weak one, which inhibited sustainability. Accordingly, we'd recommend focusing on populations that travel to and from more mature markets. And finally, while we all dream of empowered clients managing their own data, this may be too much in the short term for digitally illiterate clients. For them, an identity that is hosted at an institution rather than on their phones or computers may be necessary in the short term. I hope you've enjoyed this talk and making sense. We are continuing to develop our 2.0 version of Hawiyati for migrant workers and refugees, and we look forward to sharing additional lessons learned with you once we have them. Thank you.
What do you think of when you hear the words digital skills? What springs to mind? Maybe someone programming some lines of code or creating an app. Digital skills get talked a lot about today, but what exactly are they? And does everybody need to learn to code? We wanted to make sense of this. And with the support of the MasterCard Foundation, we developed a digital skills framework. And we found that digital skills fall into 4 broad categories: consumer, productive, developer, and e-leadership skills. I'm going to take you rapidly through these 4 types of digital skills and why they matter. Acquiring consumer digital skills matters for everyone. The drive to e-government and digital payments in Africa means that all adults need to master consumer digital skills. Navigate and find information, make an online payment, or fill in an online form. You need consumer digital skills. The gateway to the internet in Africa is the mobile phone. So this is how most people also learn. Consumer-level digital skills can be self-taught with a little help from friends and family. The most critical skill for young people in Africa to learn are productive digital skills. Employers in Ghana and Kenya lamented how new recruits were not able to use basics like Word or Excel, or even to draw out a process on paper. And it's not just in the formal sector. Even in the informal economy, where 80% of Africans' work has digitized, you need productive digital skills to take advantage of these new opportunities. Digital skills enable you to earn an income, whether it's to snag that job or to learn to sell your own goods and services on a digital platform. Skills like being able to process a mobile payment, leverage a social media post as marketing for your goods, or to track your orders. Creating a simple website no longer needs coding skills, but it can help you to reach new customers. The main tool, again, is the mobile phone, though the more digitally savvy are investing in low-cost laptops for better productivity and saving their files on the cloud. The smartest youth are teaching themselves through YouTube or other online videos, but the cost of data and access to smart devices are barriers. To really build productive digital skills for African youth, we need to address the gap between what is taught at schools and the skills young people really need for work. Higher-end developer skills were identified as a big gap for employers, which is forcing them to look overseas. A larger pool of talent is needed to drive innovation on the continent. Starting at primary school provides the biggest opportunity to move the needle. Not all kids will become coders, but they will all learn computational thinking and skills that will help them in the digital economy. Gaps identified included cloud computing, cybersecurity, and data science to process big data analytics. Blended learning showed the greatest promise for this skill, combining classroom learning with online. Many of the online learning-only courses were a challenge, though, due to the cost of data. The human interaction in a classroom in Africa provides not only content and, of course, stable Wi-Fi, but also a dedicated place to learn, motivation, and importantly, confidence through coaching and support, especially for female learners. Most digital skills framework present a progression from low to high level digital skills. We didn't find this to be true. You don't need to be a developer to lead a digital business, but you do need e-leadership skills. For locally owned innovations to succeed and for meaningful digital transformation, e-leadership skills are critical in both the public and private sectors. These include creating innovative business models and implementing digital solutions in existing businesses. Acquiring e-leadership digital skills is a blend of business acumen and exposure to more established digital businesses. Executive-type short courses or work placements can help provide a pathway. In summary, there are 4 key types of digital skills: consumer, productive, developer, and e-leadership. Learning needs to be via mobile where possible. Don't forget to include the informal economy in your approaches and teach coding from primary school. Thank you.